Insider presents Geek Speak with Matthew Harris and Meredith Loughran. We cover entertainment, news, and tech with special guest appearances. So sit back and enjoy as we geek out together right now.
Welcome to Nevermind the Furthermore with your host, Brian K. Morris, independent publisher, freelance hybrid author, award-winning playwright, and former mortician's assistant. Beware, beware. That might not be a phone jingling in your pocket. Join the Nevermorians for morning mischief and madness at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 Central. Your sense of humor is the only thing you need to wear. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Geek Speak. I know you're probably confused, but our special guest for the evening is our very favorite Brian K. Morris from Rising Tide Publications.
Yay!
And what a killer little opening for Brian's show.
I know. I glow with pride every time I run that, and plus my outro and everything. We have the delightful and lovely Meredith to thank for that, for making me look like I'm, one of the the A-listers finally, despite what goes on between those two parts,
Well, it's a pleasure to have you on here. It's kind of funny because you're always doing the shows, and I wonder how often you get to be the interviewee, get to sit in the hot seat. But you kind of do that Monday, Wednesday, and Friday with Nevermind the Furthermore.
Yeah, I do. And I do get a number of invitations, I'm grateful to say, from other shows, people who I've interacted with. Hey, Philip Thompson, good to see you, buddy. Hope you're doing well. And and it's kind of fun, especially since at the start of what we mockingly call the My Sharona Miley Cyrus Peter pandemic, about 7 months ago. Oh dear God, has it been that long? That we were broadcasting every day to try to entertain people, keep people's spirits up and everything, until my spirit got completely crushed by the effort. But we did what we could, and we're proud of it. But after that, I started pulling back on a lot of my own shows. But other people were bound and determined to make up the gap in my time. And I'm really, in all honesty, I'm very flattered to be on Geek Insider. I am very proud to be somewhat affiliated with it. And you guys run a great operation here, and I'm very ecstatic to be a part of it. I'm sincerely, all kidding aside, I am grateful for that.
Well, we played your Nevermind the Furthermore intro because we have the keys. We all kind of share the same board on StreamYard, which is great. It makes it really convenient. But I'm going to put you on the big screen and kind of let you introduce yourself for those who might not know who you are.
That's impossible.
Take it away, Brian.
Everyone knows who I am. Anyway, thank you, Meredith. And I'm rarely prepared for these things, but I'm in charge of Rising Tide Publications. We do comic books and novels. We've been around since 2012. Thank you, technology. And we've put out books like The Haunting Scripts of Bachelor's Grove, the series book Volcana, as well as the pulp adventure of the summer, original Skyman Battles Master of Steam, and of course the book that's sold in 3 different continents, Sadistine, the post-holiday Prometheus, a book of a dubious taste. Also, Meredith was discussing my broadcasting Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern. We do Nevermind the Furthermore, the interactive talk show where you are the guest. And on Tuesday nights, we do Clever Title Pending, where we talk about creativity and the business behind it. And we had a great show last Tuesday with USA Today best-selling author Jason Nugent, and this coming Tuesday we're going to be talking to Clayton Merwin, who's an amazing illustrator of paperback books and interiors. He is an incredible artist. He's got a site, Art of the Hero Maker, and we're looking forward to talking to him on Tuesday. And we hope everybody brings your questions, because that's what the shows are about.
Wow.
Very cool.
Yeah. So like you've never done this before, totally.
Right off the
Not
top of
used
my
to it.
head. Well, I don't know where
I
I don't know where it comes from. I really don't.
I know, knocking it out of the park, rookie.
I'm trying. I'm trying to maintain your high standards, people.
Beginner's luck. Beginner's luck.
Exactly.
Oh. So we've got Philip Thompson who's here. Hey, Brian K. Morris. He says, question, anyone of you heard of self-publishing heroes?
I have not.
I have not.
I don't know that I have either. I mean, I have heroes in self-publishing.
Right.
Because I remember the first time I heard about the current state of publishing. I mean, I was only slightly aware of it in terms of comic books and such, with print on demand and such. But to find out it also applies to these things too. At the time, I just lost my job, and I was part of my severance. I was given a reemployment, hooked up with a reemployment agency. And just one time, they had a webinar on electronic publishing. And I listened to that, and all I saw was potential, because you think about it, a lot of the secrets of publishing up until about 15 years ago was all in the hands of corporations.
Yep. Exactly.
That Warner, Marvel, they knew how to do comic books. The people that were publishing comics after that, a lot of them used to work for those big companies. And there was Vanity Press at the time where you print up like say 20,000 copies of your book, edited or not, and you sell like 2 copies, you give away 10 to your relatives, then you put the rest in the garage for the vermin. But when I saw that, you could print just as many as you think you need, you've already eliminated the problem of spending too much money and warehousing. Mm-hmm. And I thought that alone is a game changer. So I started studying the field of, both comic and book publishing, and went in with a solid business plan that I try my best to follow. And here I am. Like I said, Santastein has sold in not just North America, but also in Great Britain, Germany, and China, and Japan, and we're bootlegged in Russia. So
you've hit the big time.
I have. I'm worthy to be stolen from. That thought warms me at night.
Now I've got to ask though, Brian, what is the storyline behind Santastein? I'm thinking Santa and Frankenstein, kind of amalgamation there.
It is. As I say in my tagline, that Dr. Frankenstein has a cure for his fiance's holiday blues. What could possibly go wrong? This actually started out as a 10-minute stage play that a dear friend of mine, Paul Burrell, asked me to submit a story to a theater group that he was in charge of at the time. And it came back from the reading committee that I was a little bit, get this, irreverent. And I know. I wait till you guys were sitting down. I didn't want to take a chance of you fainting. And so I passed this around to other companies who gave me the same advice. And then when the stars aligned to where I needed to write my very first paperback book, I remember that play, and I just stretched it out, fleshed it out. After reading the original by Mary Shelley, of course, which was the very first novel I ever read. I was in 3rd grade, and I to this day I can reread that book. It is so meaningful to me. But anyway, I expanded it, and as I tell people, I'm kind of known as kind of like being fairly good at marketing, and getting your name out there and showing you what a marketing genius I was. I released a holiday book in March of 2013, and despite that, it actually sells very well. I'm grateful to say, and it's made a lot of people happy, which in turn makes me happy. So
now. Oh, go ahead, Matthew.
No, go ahead. I was just going to make a comment.
I was because I know because we get to talk on a regular basis on Facebook and in the DMs and stuff like that. Sure. I know that you are working on an anthology. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I can tell you a lot about it. I'm the one who knows everything. No, the business side of it. We'll start with the business side. I recognize that Rising Tide Publications is basically me. It's a vehicle for my work, and I thought, well, I need to put out more stuff. But Cookie and you, Meredith, and everyone else that knows me knows I have no self-preservation instincts anymore, and I will like do a 27-hour day sort of thing just to get work done. And so it kind of dawned on me one day, well, if I get other people to help, I could put out more work. So I came up with a character named Doc Saga, who is an ageless adventurer. He is a former Army medic. After being ambushed by bandits, is brought back to full health by a Native American person who, at that time, this takes place in the early 19th century. By that time, the Indian is over 200 years old, and he goes around the world trading healing techniques. You teach me how to heal someone, I'll share what I know with you. Not unlike Rising Tide. And Doc Saga, whose real name is Dr. Jedediah Sagamore, he joins this quest and finds that as the years progress and his store of knowledge increases, so do his abilities. And he has a very unique weakness that is avoidable, and I'll spoil it if you want.
Well,
yeah, okay. He's, of course, in the process of discovering other dimensions and such, he's made deals. And like Bob Dylan said, you've got to be honest to live outside the law. So some of these deities demand total honesty. If Doc tells a lie, he loses his abilities.
Oh, interesting.
So here's a man who not only cannot age, he cannot lie, because it has dire consequences. And at the point that we're taking up the anthology, which I haven't given a complete title to yet, these are stories that actually take place in the 1970s, during the Watergate era, Richard Nixon administration, the era of disco. And I invited, yeah, I know, brace yourself, Matthew. But anyway, I put out a call for some stories, and I got some really terrific responses. And it really is annoying me, because I'm editing these stories right now and thinking, dang, you guys do better at than I do. You know this guy far better than I have. It has been a revelation, but it's also kind of fun to create something and hand it over to someone and say, what will you do with it? And it is kind of a challenge now on my part and I do plan to make more of these. The next step is I've got to push up my game in writing my own character. So, but I'm really knocked out by what I've seen so far. In fact, I think I saw Charles F. Milhouse. He's the creator of Captain Hawkland. He is one of my able crew. Also, hey Charles, hey y'all, how you doing, my friend? And also, I will be in his magazine, Pulp Reality #1, hopefully out later this year. And Russell Allen, good to see you, my friend. We'll see you on Saturday at noon Eastern time on the indie event this weekend. Hashtag always promote. Anyway, but yeah, and we've also got some people like Paul Burrell and Cindy Kapp, Rick Barkley, and some other great people involved in this. And I'm really excited that they trusted me with to treat them right as a publisher. I don't want somebody 6 months down the way saying Brian's that guy.
Right.
As far as publishing. So, not that I want to anyway, but it helps. It helps. I honestly want to treat my contributors correctly, and we have, like a lot of operations, we're small, so we can't pay an advance, but we do have a program where the authors can make money, and the harder they work in promoting this book, the more they'll make. So.
Right. Well, you know what, when we get back, I'm going to ask you a little bit more about that that feeling of letting go of a character. You haven't technically let go, but in a way you have. You're sharing it with others. But we're going to take a real quick break right now. We'll be right back after this.
Check it out. MobileEdge.com has award-winning products with innovative features and contemporary, edgy designs that empower you to look sharp and travel smart with your mobile tech. Your beloved, not to mention expensive gaming gear and mobile tech devices are an extension of you, so give them the protection and style they deserve wherever you go. Find them at MobileEdge.com and protect your tech with Mobile Edge. Bring it on. Hey Geek Insiders, Mobile Edge has a special coupon code for our dedicated listeners. Get 25% off your Mobile Edge gear using coupon code GEEK25. That's GEEK25. Geek out.
And we're back with our special guest, Brian K. Morris from Rising Tide Publications. And so with this anthology and inviting so many people to write stories based on a character that you have nurtured and loved and created for, that must have been really difficult. What is your process of kind of letting go, maybe cutting the umbilical cord a little bit?
Well, I have worked with other publishers on their characters, and so I recognize that they too had to, like you say, cut the cord. It's probably, I don't have any children, but it's probably like taking your child on the first day of school. That you have to have trust that you have built a solid enough character that your contributors will find something that they can work with, that they can amplify even. And by the same token, I recognize that, like when I have done stage plays, after a certain point, you surrender the stage play to the director and to the actors. And for me, I used to do stage plays. I'm an award-winning stage play person. But anyway, so award-winning playwright, and the air quotes are important. I have an award. I should have brought it across the room. And I got the award, Matthew, for not killing the director because everybody thought I was. Everybody thought that I would kill him because he actually stepped into one of the roles at the last minute and accidentally skipped 3 pages of dialogue. And the thing is, I was laughing because I'm sitting in the audience and I'm so nervous I didn't even notice. So so they gave me an award, and I figured, well, I wrote a play and I got an award, so I'm an award-winning playwright. But no, you have to surrender the work to the actors and to the director. And for me, that became one of the true joys. Thank you, Travis Gibb. You're a righteous dude yourself. But you have to surrender it and let them put their imprint and let them feel ownership of it, because then it becomes a richer body of work as a result. And like, for instance, one play I did that I had a showing downstate in Illinois where I was living at the time. And it was a story about a young woman who accidentally sold her soul to Satan. She's a Cubs fan. This is before they actually won the pennant. And she accidentally sold her soul to Satan, and he comes to collect. Well, you get one interpretation, say, down, East Central Illinois. Then I had a showing up in Chicago with 2 totally different actors, a totally different director, totally different venue, totally different budget. And there's just a different kind of magic that happens. And I've had that happen with a number of my plays where the gender of a character will change, the race of a character will change, but the words are the same. They're doing the same thing, but they're not doing the same thing the same way. And that's how I feel with when I do something like Doc Saga, where I build the house, but then everybody gets to come in and paint the walls.
That's
now, are you still accepting submissions for the anthology, or have you closed it out at this point until the next volume?
Until the next volume, yes. Because I'm one of those people that have to focus, because the attention span isn't what it never was. and we have a little trouble focusing some days. So we've been working very hard on editing the manuscript. In fact, I'm halfway through the stories, probably as of the end of tonight, and I'm amazed. I really am. I can't wait for people to see it. But as of right now, we are closed. We are closed now. I do have an anthology that called Frightening Things, which will be horror stories that kind of PG-13, not exactly gore and all the stuff I happen to love reading, but we're going for a wider audience with this one. That's kind of an ongoing thing, and we'll put out books as we get enough good stories. But Doc Saga, once we get the production in kind of a rhythm, I'm hoping that we'll be able to put out at least 2 a year. And so we'll probably have another call probably in the spring. And I've already got 2 people that are knocking at the door, which also makes my little heart beat glad.
Now, do they just go to Rising Tide Pub .pub to get into the horror anthology and to watch for these calls to action?
Yeah, and we also have a secret page for the contributors as well. So if anyone would like to do prose, and it's a workspace, not a lurk space, as I call it. So go to Rising Tide Publications on Facebook. Just do a search for Rising Tide Publication. Also go to my profile page. We have a link on there in my near my bio, and hit me up, and we'll put you into that group. And as things develop, we'll let everyone know that we're doing a second volume. So, and I already got a theme in mind for the next volume. We're gonna this volume, like I said, is going to focus on the 80s. The next one is going to focus on his entire life from from I think I have him like the mid 1700s to the current day.
Wow.
Now, I want to get to the question from David here, but I had a quick question here. You mentioned a minute ago that, getting these anthology submissions, that you've been really pleasantly surprised by how well that they are taken off with your character, and that it's going to make you step up your game. That's some of the best fun I've ever had writing, is challenging myself, thinking outside the box, having that little fun head-to-head competition. But do you find that you start seeing things like, that they gave the character something that you just hadn't thought of, but that it's just fit beautifully with the Doctor, or started getting you to thinking about taking the character in a different way? So in other words, have these submissions, other than challenging you to write better on the character, have they given you, ideas as far as expanding or just solidifying the character more?
Actually, that's a very good question, Matthew. And yes, the answer is yes. We have kind of a hard timeline for Doc to follow, but there's a lot of wiggle room, because we might have a significant event, like say, there's maybe like 40 or 50 years between significant events, so there's stuff to do. But like, for instance, Charles F. Millhouse's story, he was asking me about when Doc uses his abilities in the more current age, how does that affect him? And I explained that I see it as it takes a price on it.
Right.
Like if you play D&D, like hero games or whatever, you have to burn endurance in order to do something. And it's the same way with Doc, but he's reaching down to basically at times bend the laws of physics. So a greater price is exerted on him, or is taken from him. And Charles wrote a couple sequences where, like, I wrote the pilot story so that people could get an idea of how Doc thought and moved and, did what he did. And I'm thinking, I didn't go far enough in my story to describe the toll it takes on him when he does something extraordinary. And so I'm going to go back and I'm going to try to keep up with Charles on this one. So, but it's a great challenge. I'm having, like I love challenging myself just to see if I can do this stuff. So
right, and that's exactly what I used to do with poetry. I enjoy writing poetry, and I'd gotten involved with this website. and they would have little contests, and it was write in a haiku or write about this subject, and this different style. One, I learned about all different kinds of styles of poetry by going to that, and then two, it was just such a challenge I always just call it exercising my muscle, or stretching my muse's legs, but just so that you can learn something new or approach that. But you know what I found? I have to stay away from haikus, because then I start thinking in haiku, and everything becomes a freaking haiku. And so, you've got to kind of to take it with I'm OCD as well, so that probably didn't help any. But I don't have to turn the light switch off and on 20 times or something, that unfortunately some people are afflicted with. But I'm very, very obsessive, and it sucks that my kids have called me out on it all my life, or all their lives. But being able to challenge yourself with your own character, that's just got to be cool as hell. To see everybody expanding upon the character that you built. But David Atkins asked, how do you deal with negative authors that try to distract and deter those that are trying to make, great books, not simple stories?
Well, that's an excellent question, David, and we're glad you're here. Well, in my case, I go in realizing I'm not making literature for the ages, or if I am, I'm going to be dust by the time anyone thinks to lump me in that group. My influences are primarily, although I have read a lot of the classic literature, Shakespeare, Mary Shelley, etc., etc. A lot of my chops really come from the pulp writers of the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s era, like the Shadow, Doc Savage, people like that, on up into like the adventure series novels of the 70s and 80s, such as Don Pendleton's Mac Bolan, The Executioner.
Oh, I love The Executioner, man.
I do too. I got to meet Don Pendleton one time. What an amazing gentleman.
Wow.
So wonderful.
I fell in love with those as a teenager, and they continued on. Ghostwriters continued writing the Mac Bolan and the Executioner series for a long time.
Yeah.
But and there was the two different books. A lot of people don't know this. There was Mac Bolan and the Executioner going on at the same time.
And then the spin-offs like Stony Man and all those. Yeah.
And I liked the Executioner better than the Mac Bolan series for some reason.
Yeah.
But those, and I didn't mean to interrupt you. It's just I hadn't thought about those in years, and that's something that harkens back to the childhood, because those were so good.
Oh my God, yeah, and also you probably remember this one too, The Destroyer, Remo Williams.
Yeah,
they made that movie in '83 with Fred Ward and
yep. Oh my God,
Gray.
I just saw it. I think it's available on Amazon Prime. I just saw it come up the other day, and yeah, I know it's been a long time since I put it on my list on I'm pretty sure it was Amazon, but yeah, The Adventures of Remo or the adventure begins, and then we never got a sequel.
Right, darn it. Yeah, and it was produced by the same team that did James Bond, the James Bond film. So yeah, I loved all that stuff. But those are the guys who are my heroes. I describe them as the guys that would beat typewriters to death with their fingertips because they got paid by the word, and they often worked with other people's creations or a firm editorial hand, which makes for stories by itself. But those are my people. So I have no delusions that I'm creating anything highfalutin, so to speak. I'm just trying to entertain some people. I'm trying to take you away from the world and let you visit mine for a little bit. So but anyway, what I do with detractors is I ignore them. I cut them out of my life. I say frequently that if you intend to make a career of this, you leave people behind, because not everybody is swimming in the same direction, and not everybody is looking forward to your success like you do. When I first announced that I was going to be a full-time author, mostly because I lost my job and I didn't have any other plan A at the time, although I've been a freelance writer for many years, I got a lot of people that were like, "You can't do this. This is crazy. You're gonna lose your shirt." And I'm like, "You don't know what I know. You don't know my plan." And fortunately, my plan's been working out, and I'm not getting quite as many detractors as I used to. If anything, I'm getting a better level of haters. So,
Well, before we take our next break,
yes.
Jason Weatherly wants to know what you got
He
in the glass.
knows. He knows what's in the glass. That's my brother, and you know that. And you know full well what is in the glass. It's almost empty, so it's break time, and I'm going to go fill it up. But it is whiskey. That is my drink of choice. But
Good
Jason,
man.
thanks for tuning in tonight, brother.
Yeah, we appreciate all the listeners. So
Yeah.
what we're going to do is we're going to take another quick break, and we'll be right back.
This is the Legend of the Traveling TARDIS. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Subscribe to us wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Also catch us on the HWWS Web TV YouTube channel. Subscribe today and become part of the legend.
All right. And we love Christian Basil and the Legend of the Traveling TARDIS. What a great show and such a good personality. So I hope you guys
Seriously.
tune into that. Brian, we seem to have lost Matthew for a moment, but
I
let's
didn't do it. I didn't do it.
maybe I did.
Alone at last, darling.
David Adkin asks, many try to say that you can be the next blank, whether it's King, Rowling, or others, and so sick of making it seem simple when it comes to money, inspiration, time, correcting editing, and rewrites to make a good story. Do you believe them that anyone can do it?
I believe in all sincerity that almost anyone can do it. But it takes time, it takes discipline, it takes knowledge. Like I said, I spent about 6 months trying to familiarize myself not just with the tech and the inner workings of distribution and production and such, but also the market to see if whether I could find a place in it. And fortunately, I found out that whatever I write has a place. It's just a matter of then promoting it, which was the next step of my education, which is an ongoing thing, of course. Now, the only time I get nervous is when somebody else says, "I will turn you into the next James Patterson, the next Clive Cussler, the next Clive Barker, for only X amount of money." Now, those people are the new vanity publishers, and I could take up a week of this program with horror stories that I have encountered from other people. But for the grace of God, I could have been one of them. But fortunately, I was educating myself and knew better over the trap.
And actually, not too long ago, you had a special guest on for Clever Title Pending, and the name is escaping me, and I can't remember which episode, but you were talking about exactly that, vanity presses, and to run away. Because as a publisher, you want to hammer out the really quality work and stuff like that. But when somebody says, "Pay me and I guarantee this will happen," but then they turn around and say, "Oh, well, what's your social media reach?" They're asking you, the creator. They're turning it on you as a way of, in my opinion, kind of setting you up for, well, if you fail, it's because you didn't do enough. But if you succeed, I get all the credit.
Right.
Now, Brian, what is your opinion? Because I have my own personal opinion on these. They call them anthologies, or they'll call them contests. And you have like the Writers of the Future with L. Ron Hubbard, or you have the Isaac Asimov one. But of course, they want you to pay to enter, and then you have to buy the book if you want a copy of it. So what is your opinion on those opportunities for budding writers?
It can be an opportunity. However, I have a firm policy of never paying to play. I believe that money, if anything, should flow towards the creator. that was one of the things that held up Doc Saga for a while, was the fact that I had people that wanted to be a part of it, but I couldn't figure out how to pay them what I thought they were worth. And then I kind of stumbled on something I was doing for myself, and they said, well, why don't you let us in on that too, but you be the guy that's the center of it, the nexus of it, and making it happen. And I said, okay, fine. And that's why we're going to make sure everyone gets paid. But yeah, the contests, I am firmly against them. The anthologies, I think the people who do that should be horsewhipped in the public square. The same thing I found when I was a playwright, that we had producers who would be saying, well, like for $50, you can send your script in for consideration. And I would write them and say, well, if I send you 100, do I have a better chance? And I also asked them, well, how much did you charge your directors to apply? How much did you ask from your actors to audition?
Mhm.
You see, and when they are trying to make their money off of the back, literally the backs of the creative talent, I have a strong opinion about it. I am dead set against it. And anyone that thinks, well, I'll get exposure. Well, learn to do what I do and learn to market it, and you'll get all the exposure you can handle. I tell people exposure is what usually gets you about 6 months in the county lockup if you do it too close to a schoolyard. So,
and that leverages right into Brian Rodman's question. He says, what do you think is the most important thing when it comes to marketing your own work in such an oversaturated market?
Brian, that's an excellent question. I think the key is one, have basically an elevator pitch for your book. The shorter, the better. The example I'm always giving is there is a young man who in the 19th century makes his way aboard a whaling vessel where he learns a whole new way of life. However, the insane ship's captain is bound and determined to destroy the white whale that took his leg, even if it means the lives of every man on board. I've just described Moby Dick in the way you all wish your high school English teacher did. And you would be praying you could read that book. And instead, a lot of people think, well, if I talk for half an hour, that'll really get them fired up. No, it doesn't. But I think you should have a concise message. It should convey the excitement of the book, and also put that message out wherever you can. Share the message. Find your tribe. Find your friends who will help you share that message as well. And I think that's a great way to start. This promotion thing doesn't have to cost any money at first. Once you get to a certain level, I think then you should invest something in terms of your promotion. But a lot of this stuff that I do as a publisher and a promoter can be done by yourself. And if you're willing to exchange sweat equity for money, then you've got a fighting chance in this marketplace. Also create something really unique, something that someone else isn't doing. Don't be an imitator, be an innovator. Do something, something even if it's familiar. Like mine's based on a 200-year-old horror novel. But find that hook that makes it something special, and then find your audience.
Well, and before we get to David's question, I honestly want to say, in my own personal opinion, I don't think that the market is oversaturated, because people are looking for quality content. So if you're feeling that it's oversaturated, that might be a slight case of imposter syndrome,
which we have discussed frequently on Clever Tile Pen, and we will touch on it again. I think it's an excellent observation, Meredith. I think a lot of people use oversaturation as an excuse, and you can make the argument that there's been 26 James Bond films, so the market is saturated with James Bond films, but yet everyone wants that last Daniel Craig to come out. Everybody's looking for the next J.K. Rowling book. The thing is, if you think it's oversaturated, then create a hunger for your product.
That's a great point. Great point.
Mm-hmm.
And then David says here, go ahead. Meredith.
No,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
I was
Go
gonna say-
right ahead.
I'll read it. David Atkins says, no, go ahead.
No, go for it, Brian.
It's not my show.
You can read the question and answer it, and I'll take a drink of whiskey.
Okay, now you got, as long as you have a good reason. David Atkins says, currently finding it hard to focus on writing due to which way do I go? How do you decide on one storyline and not deter? Temptation is huge.
Good
David,
question.
I'm glad you asked that question because I wrestle with it every day, my friend. Yes, I do. What I do is, and a little terminology here, there's pantsers and there's outliners. And I am kind of an outliner who, pantsers every now and then. But have a basic outline of where you want your story to go. And if you do it on the micro level where you have like your basic outline, you still have room for creativity and you still have room to let your imagination run away from your outline as long as you fix what comes after. I've had this many times where my ending in the final edition of my book barely resembles the one I started out with when I started typing for chapter 1. Right. Because I also say that as you go, when you start chapter 2, you're a better writer already than when you started chapter 1 because you've had that experience. And right now I'm doing just as kind of an exercise and a little mercenary something down the road. I'm doing what I'm calling a flash novel, where I have an idea of where my story is to go, but I'm writing it one chapter at a time with a very limited word count for each chapter. And I start the day, okay, I'm going to get the character from point A to point B. Mm-hmm. And I'm giving myself 1,500 to 2,000 words a chapter to do it in. And it's been kind of a fun exercise in a very loose plan for a book, but I kind of know where the ending is, but I got lots of wiggle room to get to it a lot, on the way there. So, and this is another way, like Matthew said, I'm challenging myself to do this. Plus I've been doing so much editing. I miss writing. Okay.
Yep, same here. I do a lot of editing these days, and I don't get to write. And I kind of want to piggyback off of David's question there, because like right now, I have 8 Word documents open that are minimized, and all of them are either an outline, a story idea, or they're actually started. And they might have 2 or 3 chapters in them where I just banged away, the idea hit me, and I just went with it. And so then how do you decide which stories to prioritize? Because being a writer, you have those ideas that hit you in the middle of the night, or you're sitting there just scratching your head and bam, it pops in, and you go and type it down. You're like, wow, that's a really good idea. But then you've got 8 freaking stories in front of you. How do you pick which ones to go with first?
Well, in my case, most of the time I just figure out which one I'm most fired up about writing, which one is offering me the greatest challenge right now. And yes, I have put aside projects at times, or what I also do is I talk to my wife about it, who is now my business manager / pimp. And trust me.
And what's her phone number?
I couldn't tell you if I tried. Anyway, but no, she's number 1 on the speed dial. But no, her hand is strong. Trust me, her hand is strong because she is. I started writing. This was part of National Novel Writing Month last November, and I came up with the first draft for a fantasy romance book because I wanted to see if I could write something with some genuine romance in it. And it's called Aquatic: Love Above the Waves, and it's kind of a take on the old the Atlantean falls in love with a surface person thing, but we've got some twists in it. Most of my stuff is a little twisted, but anyway.
I thought you were writing a new Blue Lagoon or something there for a minute,
Blue Lagoon. Okay. Now I've got another project. No, but no. I started this project and I started the second draft on it, and then I got some writing assignments, which are kind of like the thing that draws me away from my own work. And I followed, up with them, several comics book scripts, a couple of short stories, a novella, for other publishers who, they've got their own publishing plans and don't have the same level of urgency I do on my own stuff. So I'm back to doing my own stuff till the end of the year, he said, hoping. But every now and then, my wife Cookie will say, "Where's Aquatic? Where's Aquatic?" And I have to sit there and somehow justify my existence, and I'm doing a poor job of it. I'm really sucking at this, but no, I just basically, if I have I have a number of projects in various stages of development, including a follow-up to my book Volcana from 2015, and I go with whatever I'm fired up most to write, whatever will present the greatest challenge to me. And right now, since I'm trying to get Doc Saga done, I'm treating my Flash novel project as I give myself a 10-minute break and I write on it. And I try and make it as nice as I can. They say bang it out, but I want to make it nice. I want to make the best first draft I can. And then after 10 minutes, and I set a timer, I get up, walk around, and then I'll do 10, 20 minutes on the editing again, take another break, then I'll do another 10 minutes on the writing. And it is firing me up like no tomorrow. It really is. Plus I drink a lot of coffee.
I like that strategy, but we're going to take another real quick break, and we'll get back, and we'll get back to a couple of questions.
Yep.
All right, we'll be right back.
Now, every Sunday morning, longtime independent comics creator and Indie Volt podcaster Randy Zimmerman hosts a discussion on the lighter side of comics, the more whimsical and fun comics out there, on the Sunday Funnies. That's 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time every Sunday on Indie Volt, indievolt.com, the Indie Volt YouTube channel, and the usual Indie Volt sites on Facebook. Listen in, won't you? Participate in the chat. Let's have some fun. See you there.
I got to tune into that.
I do too.
I mean, he's getting John Celestri on regularly.
Oh, nice.
So if you're not familiar with John Celestri, he's done animation for He-Man, She-Ra. I mean, basically all the cartoons that I grew up in.
I have been, speaking of She-Ra, I have been confused as hell lately because on Twitter, separate word Ra, keeps trending, and apparently it is some K-pop thing or something that I am not aware of, because it is not She-Ra. It got me so confused the other day. I was wondering, am I misremembering, or is this a Mandela effect? That She-Ra was not the opposite of He-Man? But yeah, Twitter can confuse the hell out of an old guy like me.
You know what? Speaking of Mandela effect, really quickly, Matthew, why don't you plug your Wednesday night show?
Seriously.
Well, it is on Wednesday nights at 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern. It's geeky, cheeky, and downright freaky. And we discuss the Mandela effect quite frequently. Last week, I had the Reverend Pastor Luke Stone on, and we discussed changes to the Bible. And yesterday, we discussed Are Angels Real? Angels Caught on Tape. And we just kind of discussed more of the freaky side of the geek world. And I try to have a little fun with it. But that's every Wednesday night. It's not on Indie Volt yet, but I'm about to start nibbling at Varian's ear to get it on over there as well. Because that is, not to toot my own horn, but it seems to be our most popular broadcast on our YouTube, at least. We get quite a few views on that. And most of the time I am hitting the whiskey, but I do keep it down to a minimum or a maximum, I should say, of 2 per show. But yeah, it's one of those things I just like. Yeah, they are very big glasses, but we like to have fun. I'm planning on having more guests on the show. I've got a friend who is into I don't want to misspeak and say what she's into, but we went to high school together. We actually dated for a little while. And then we found out that our worlds kind of collide on this kind of stuff and on a lot of this thinking. But Brian, going back to some of the questions here,
Yes.
Nicholas says, quick question. As comics and pop literature moves forward, how do you as creators stay relevant? A lot of our influences are being forgotten by the majority. How do you balance the aging out of references and ideas?
Super question, Nick. Thank you. In my case, I have always been a history buff. And at the same time, I try to keep current with what's going on in a pop culture sense. In fact, I was on a show just last weekend where everyone was saying, "Well, I'm in my 40s. I'm old. I'm in my 40s," and I'm telling them, you know, all you guys could have your ages, and you won't even come close to mine. I'll still tell you to get the hell off my lawn. And they're like, "How old are you?" And I told them, I said, "Okay, there's a Beatles song about me." And one of them, the youngest guy there, goes, "You're 64?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "That's impossible. You don't look 64." So he got on my Christmas list right away. But no, I try to keep up with. There we go. Phil Loughran was on his great show. Catch it from last weekend. Always promote. Anyway, the thing was, I've always been one of those people, that like I try to keep up on like current music because I like a lot of current music actually. I'm vaguely aware of what's going on TV because I don't really watch television much anymore. But I also, I can talk about, I know who Justin Bieber is. I can talk Spice Girls. I can talk Beatles. I can talk Frank Sinatra. I can even talk Rudy Valley. But I've always been kind of like an information sponge, and that helps me too. But it's part of that also I think helps inform my work in that I wanted to have a kind of ageless quality to it, that you can enjoy it. Maybe not even as a period piece, but that it has enough references that no matter what your demographic age-wise, that there's something in there that will say, aha, this person's on my wavelength. So
Right. And I'm only 51. I say only, used to 50 was really, really old in my eyes. And then now I'm like, damn, how did I get here so quick? And how did I get here? But you do have to kind of stay relevant because, or not kind of, you do have to stay relevant. I grew up, man, I was a huge, huge Stephen King fan of old school Stephen King books. I still think there's two Stephen Kings. I think he was replaced after the accident by aliens because his books after that were completely different. But
it was the same people who took care of Paul McCartney back in the day. Is what it is.
Yep, exactly. And but I did used to, and I still kind of dream it in the back of the head, of wanting to be the next Stephen King because I do like the horror. Most of my stuff is good versus evil, but yes, I know who Justin Bieber is, but I couldn't tell you a single song of his. And the BTS craze, I couldn't name a single song of theirs. I just joined Twitter like a year ago, and I would probably still be on MySpace if anybody else was on there. I didn't join Facebook until a few years ago. I'm always late on the trends. I was going to save this for Christian, and if he's listening right now, he's going to shit a brick. But I've never seen a Doctor Who episode. And I am a big nerd. I'm a big geek. I love that kind of stuff. And everybody's telling me, oh, Matthew, you'll love Doctor Who. You need to check it out. But I never get in on those kind of trend things. And so how do you stay on top of, how are you going to be able to write a story that includes a Spice Girls reference or a Justin Bieber reference, or just kind of speaking to that generation? Because we grew up at a different time than a lot of our listeners did, except for the people that went to high school with me that tune in when I'm on the air. But
Yeah.
we are from a completely different generation than the millennials and the Gen Xers.
Right. That's true. And well, the thing is, I just kind of work it in because I also try to put a variety of people into the books. They're not all going to be me. They're all not all going to be the same demographic, as I like to call them. I try to put a variety of people in who might be able to talk about different eras or different cultures, for instance. It's something I'm touching on in my my current writing exercise. I'm dealing with race prejudice in the 1940s from a superheroic point of view. So, so I'll be bringing characters from there. But then again, I'll write something like a Volcana who is not in her 20s. She is a veteran. She's had a life experience already by the time we meet her in the first book. And so her references are going to be a little different than, say, somebody she meets along the way who might be quoting BTS lyrics or whatever, or, whereas, my Angelique Forge is likely to be doing like Kylie Minogue lyrics, from, back in the 90s and remembering when MTV actually played music. So,
hey man, that was the shit in the 80s or the 90s or the 80s. Yeah.
The fact that you've thrown out those names is just like blowing my mind. I'm like, how do you know those people?
The only way I know those names is because they trend on Twitter, and I do follow Twitter. The only reason I do Twitter, though, I am one of the internet's original trolls, and I don't think I've ever told this story. But I told you earlier, Brian, I used to work for a Howard Stern fan site,
right?
And when the original Howard Stern promotion room for his Private Parts movie got shut down, the fans kind of bounced around at first until we opened up this other site, and we took over a hair chat. And I may well be responsible for the birth of quite a few children, because we went into this hair chat and it's for balding men. And I actually convinced several of the guys that I had grown a full head of hair from taking my sister's birth control pills, and because of the hormones in it. And so these guys were going to go and take their wives or significant others or sisters' birth control pills. And so to this day, I may be responsible for a lot of births in the late 90s and early 2000s. But that's the only reason I have a Twitter now, is I troll. I just go and have fun. I am the world's worst self-promoter. I have Facebook, where I have all my high school friends and people that I work with and people that I like, but I hardly ever post my own shit on there. I'm usually just posting a joke or commenting on somebody's stuff. And like I said earlier, I'm the worst at following trends. But well,
you're gonna have a little challenge when you're like, "Hey, you guys are stupid. Hey, I'm poking fun at you. Oh, by the way, I have this great show called Freaky Geeky, which I'd love for you to watch."
Right.
Way to build up that goodwill. You know what I'm saying? We need to talk. We need to talk.
I'll send out stuff on my Facebook, or Meredith will set up the show, and because she is my producer extraordinaire, and so I'll go on and I will have people from my high school and family and stuff that tune in, but I'm the world's worst at self-promotion. Admittedly, Meredith has yelled at me. I made her get back on Facebook when we first started all this stuff, and now she's got way more of a presence than I do. But how do you, with the writers, and we've talked about it earlier, the competition and the saturation of the market, quote unquote, but how do you prioritize the self-promotion? Where do you prioritize your time, as far as between the podcast, between your website, between the social media? How do you decide that stuff?
Well, the first question is badly. One of the problems with my broadcast is that I spend so much time promoting other people because so many people don't have a bully pulpit like I do, that they come onto my show because they know I'll talk them up. And in the I do mention that I have books out there. I do mention that I am a publisher and a writer, and I will promote anything I'm involved with. And I keep my eyes and ears open for good ideas. Like I took one from Meredith just the other day, and I put a QR code in the corner of my broadcast. See, Meredith, I'm listening. I'm trying not. But and I'm working on several promotional kind of things right now. It's one of those, I don't want to release it in a half-assed way. I want to be at least 85% assed on this one, recognizing that I will have room to grow. But just the same, I probably don't do as good a job of self-promotion as I used to. Another problem is I don't really have new product, which really lends itself to an impetus to talk about your work. Because now I've gotten to the point where I not only have a sale date for what I do, I have pre-sales where I'm trying to beat the drum and get y'all to get excited about what's coming up. And that's, again, stuff I've learned along the way because this whole market keeps changing. So I'm not as good as I once was, but I'm probably still better than most people, and I know enough that I can teach others. So.
Well, I'm going to interject here because we are at the hour and we promised an hour. Now, do you need to get going, Brian? Because what we could do is an outro and just stay live and kind of do an after hours thing.
I'm yours.
Yeah? All right. So you know what? We're going to I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We are actually going to continue with the live stream, but I'm going to play our outro. Don't go anywhere.
You've been tuning in to Geek Speak with Matthew Harris and Meredith Loughran, a Geek Insider presentation. Subscribe to the Geek Insider podcast on your favorite listening app and sign up for the newsletter on our website. We also have advertising opportunities through the website, podcast, and newsletter. For details, contact advertising at geekinsider.com. This has been a Geek Insider production. Thank you for listening. Geek out.
You should
Absolutely
see us all in
love our music. We're all in the background dancing.
Like
And of course, right now, stay safe. Wear a mask.
Oh, Brian, I don't know if you saw it, but I had some commercials last night on my show, and there.
Oh yes, I did see that. That was a riot.
Those guys are hilarious.
They are.
We have to require a mask, but no condoms.
Oh, now you tell me.
I know. So we are in the after hours. We are continuing on with our broadcast with our one of our favorite people, Brian K. Morris from Rising Tide Publications. He has a show, Never Mind the Furthermore, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, as well as Clever Title Pending, which is Tuesday nights. And we are, I've been naughty. Brian, I was naughty. I finally got a bunch of the Clever Title Pending episodes up on iHeartRadio. So you guys can tune into iHeartRadio.
I'm grateful.
Yeah, do a search. If you look for Geek Insider podcast, I basically burned the midnight oil, and I did the naming conventions a little bit differently because unfortunately, with the different podcasts that we have, the player doesn't allow you to separate it by episodes or seasons, which is what I was hoping that it would do. And so if you see CTP, that's Clever Title Pending. If you see GS, that's Geek Speak. And then we have GCDF for Geeky Cheeky and Downright Freaky. So as you're going down the playlist, if you want to skip through, Geek Insider, Geek Speak and head to Clever Title Pending, it's just a really quick visual for the player. It's a work in progress, but we're almost caught up. We have about 3 more episodes of Clever Title Pending that we have to upload, and then basically a whole shitload of Matthew's shows that. I've been a little bit busy, you guys. And I'm gonna.
I know, and I appreciate it. Yeah.
And I'm gonna put this card up here because this is IndieVent, you guys. IndieVent is happening this weekend, and if you haven't been paying attention at all, then I'm going to let you know that this event is comic book centric. It is the end of summer bash. We've got Saturday that's full of shows. People are bringing their shows to the network, which is really kind of cool. So Brian, you've got your own show that you're bringing on, and you have a special guest.
Yes, I do.
I know that Chuck Piano, he's bringing Chuck's Rawversations. Luke Stone has Comics Nuts and Bolts. I am going to be there with a panel with Mog Park, Daphne Lage, and Enes Eskander. And, so we're just going to, the girls are going to sit around and chat and stuff like that. And I told Enes, I said, practice your Valley Girl because we're going to goof off and we're going to do that again. We had so much fun the last time.
Well, gag me with a spoon.
Oh my God. Do you think she's going to do it?
Your Valley Girl beats hers by far.
For sure.
And what's funny is those that you crack her up with it. And folks, if you haven't done so yet, speaking of Ennis, if you go to Indiegogo and look up Iva, or
Iva.
What are we calling it now? Yeah, Eva.
Eva.
EYVA.
Iva, EYVA. Yes.
But
She's
it is
still
a badass looking comic. I can't wait to get my grubby little hands on my copy. And that's, just kind of taking a sidestep here real quick, folks. You'll see that on Rob's show, Comic Book Advocates, and then ours, we have a lot of folks that are starting new comics. And we do turn down quite a few because we only bring you the ones that we feel are really, have some talent behind them and have the potential. But we have seen some really great ones lately. And I really think Iva has got the potential to be a big blockbuster in the coming years. And if you haven't gotten in on it yet, then by all means, jump over there to Indiegogo and look it up. EYVA. You can still get it on demand. She was fully funded. And like I said, I can't wait to get mine in the mail. Towards Christmas is going to be really cool because I got so much stuff coming between hybrids and Iva, the She Return of the Warrior. There's something else that I've pledged to, backed as well.
Christmas? What are you gifting yourself? Is that like the Christmas spirit?
They're all supposed to come in between September and December, so it's just going to be a great.
Mine. Randy Zimmerman says he's just discovered the classic Who channel on Pluto TV. I have to check that out because
good stuff.
I don't remember. I'm familiar with it, but I've never actually watched classic Who. So I actually want to get caught up on that. But he says from Hartnell to McCoy in original episodes with commercials, but it's still great. I'm okay with that. Author Michaela Jade says, don't feel bad. I don't watch Doctor Who either. Nothing against it. Just when I watched it, I'm more into history. Yeah. The first few episodes for me was really difficult. And I was just like, there's got to be more to it. So, and for me, a lot of times the pilot episode is crap anyway, because you're getting used to the characters. You don't know really who they are.
Right.
But then as as I watched, I noticed that I was really getting into it. And, so it turned into a lot of fun. I kind of did the same thing with Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the original.
Yeah.
It was
Same
like,
here.
yeah, it was like the first two. I was like, oh my God, it's like looking around, making sure nobody was either teasing me or going like, I can't believe you're watching that. And it turned into like a full blown, basically took 3 days of not sleeping to watch the entire, I think, not the season, like the entire Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So going back to, because our special guest here is Brian, we want to get back to some of these questions here that we missed on the replay. I mean, not on the replay, but in our live episode that was within the 1 hour here. We had the Nicholas Tucker one, and I really do want to thank everybody who's tuning in to watch, because we really appreciate you. A lot of new to me people. So I think, Brian, this is all Brian love. Yeah.
They love the fez. Ladies love the fez.
That's right, by God. That's right.
So Jonah Cagley.
Cagley. That's my.
Yeah.
I used to work in retail. That's what I saw this earlier. And he's one of my former customers, who has also produced comic books of his own. I ran across my Omega Force the other day, Jonah.
Mm-hmm. So it says here, Brian has the same exuberance and youthful enthusiasm that he had when I first met him at the Book Nook in 1981. Age is only a number. I agree.
Seriously, I'm telling somebody right now who he just turned 50, or he's looking forward to turning 50, and actually not looking forward to turning 50. And after a while, it's like I just find that I am more in control of my creative powers. I am finding new opportunities, new challenges every day. I'm actually at a point, not to sound like I'm bragging, I am, that, I'm turning away work, and it has to fire me up more than anything. And, it's like, I thought right now I thought I'd be in my declining years, and now I'm just getting warmed up. So it's good to see you, Jonah. Thank you for being here, brother. Appreciate you, man.
David Adkins asks, time to be hated by every author.
Okay.
Tell us great and bad ways to write a synopsis for your book for those wanting to be fully published. Is it hard?
That's kind of personal, David.
Before we got on the show, he said he was playing with it too, folks.
That's right. Yeah, that's why they made me wear a condom. But anyway, no, there is the only good way to write an outline or synopsis is one that you can use. And I have to admit that I have wavered between starting out. I mean, the first synopsis I ever made was basically like I taught us in school, with the Roman numerals, then the capital letters, then the regular numbers, then the lowercase. Right, and I did that, and I felt that was a little too restrictive for me. And so I have kind of loosened up my outline to the point where it's more or less prose. I'm just kind of like doing the Cliff Notes version of my story. But I'm also indenting it where I think the chapters might fall naturally. And I can create kind of an artificial cliffhanger of sorts to get people to keep reading into the next chapter. There's a lot of technical stuff in this writing thing. Anyone who thinks it's easy probably isn't doing it very well. But yeah, I would say the best synopsis is the one that works for you, and one that keeps you fired up about the project once you start it. Because, I tell people that in any creative field, there's a lot of people who want to be a writer or want to be an artist or a singer or an actor. And I would probably say that 90% or better of them don't even get off their backsides off the couch to do something about it. And there's a lot of people, if we want to talk about congestion, there's a lot of people that want to do what we're doing, what you guys do so well. There's a ton of people who'd love to have an audience like you guys do it, and a slick show that like you guys are putting on tonight. I'm sitting here taking notes. But there are people that just don't get off their butts and do it. And just even the attempt, just even trying and failing puts you so freaking far ahead of other people who just sit and talk about it. I was at a library signing one time, and I had a person actually ask me, how can I get where you are, Brian, without putting in any of the work? And I gave him my second response. My first one would require an FCC challenge here. But the second response that I actually gave him was, I got where I am because I took the challenges and I learned from them and I grew from them. And if I knew how to get you around everything I had to do so that you can wind up where I'm at, I'd never tell you.
Yeah. And,
See, another,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Meredith.
I was going to say another analogy was, it's for the person who is, you're growing into your sweatpants, your ass is the size of your couch, and you're watching The Biggest Loser, and you're going, I can do that while you're eating a bag of chips.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. Good point. Good analogy. Seriously.
And if you ask any writer that is making a living at this, you go, how do you, what's the first step? And they tell you to write. And, that has been the biggest drawback for me, or the biggest hurdle for me my entire life, because I've been told since high school, Matthew, you're a good writer. You should really pursue it. And then always had it in the back of my head. Am I really? And I would write short stories for my kids or just to write it because it was something that hit me. But I never pursued it until I had to. 3 years ago, I was working for Apple, or 4 years ago, I was working for Apple. Some issues happened medically, and I wasn't able to perform the job that I used to do. And somebody actually, I was asking for some help, and somebody came to me and they said, look, the way you wrote that was really good. Have you ever considered being a writer? I was like, well, actually, yes, I have. And I started writing that at 1 cent a word, ghostwriting books. There are a dozen books on Amazon that I have written that are not in my name. They've changed titles on me, so I don't even know where the hell they are anymore, but I wrote them. And, but writing at a penny a word when you're writing a 20,000 or 40,000 word, book, it takes a lot of time, but I used all of that as springboards, and I wrote for Geek Insider. Starting out as just a writer, I would do 1 or 2 articles a week, but I used that portfolio to springboard into other positions. And then I came around back full circle. And after a couple of years of working my ass off, then met with Rhett, the owner of Geek Insider, and I took over as managing editor. And then Meredith and I and Alan have really taken this and expanded it in the last 9 months, 8 months.
Very cool. Very cool.
But the thing is, folks, is that if you have that desire to write, then by all means, write. I am, I need to practice what I preach, because I end up spending all my time on what makes me money or my responsibilities, and then I don't write my stuff. And so that's why I have 8 open Word documents down at the bottom of my screen that, have not had any work in weeks. And you just have to make sure that you are putting in that effort to be yourself and pursue that dream, because no one's going to do it for you. And there's no easy way around it. You could get dragon speaking, which I did have to use for a little while when I couldn't type. But for the most part, you are going to have to be the one that hammers away at those keys. And whether that is 30 minutes a night or 10 minutes, like Brian was saying, with his timer being set, and then spending, 15, 20 minutes on editing, and then grabbing another 10 minutes when he can. That's what you have to do to be able to make it anywhere in this business, whether it is short stories you want to write or comic books you want to write or the next great American novel, you have to get it out of here and onto the paper. And again, I need to practice what I preach, because that's why I have so many documents open, because I get those ideas and I jot them down. And I tell you, one of the worst things, and I've got one right down here, to go and write 3 chapters and not leave yourself an outline and read through, go back later and go, wow, I don't remember writing this, for one thing. But the biggest thing is where the fuck was I going with this story? Because it's a really good basis, but what did I have in mind when I started this? So being a pantser and a planner, the combination, you really need, if you're going to be a pantser, at least jot down your ideas, because if you're OCD and you get involved with shit for another month, when you go back to it, trust me, you're going to forget what the hell your idea was to begin with.
Great points, Matthew. Seriously. And I get a number of people who are like, well, I'm waiting for the time to be right. And I'm like, the technology exists that it's virtually free to do if you want to learn how to do it yourself. There is a way you can reach your audience that they're not looking for the next Stephen King. They're not looking for the next J.K. Rowling. But you know who I found they were looking for? They were looking for Brian K. Morris.
Yep.
And so I give them what I've got. And, everyone has a unique voice. So, if you're waiting for the right time, find me a writer who wrote their great stuff when everything was perfect. J.K. Rowling was on the dole.
Look at Mary Shelley.
Exactly. Yes.
That whole story came about when she wasn't even a writer. Right. And, one of the best classic stories of all time.
Yeah, in fact, by many people, if you've never read it, folks, it is considered it is probably the very first science fiction book ever written. Yeah. And a lot of people think of it as just horror, but that book multitasks, and I think it's one of the classic stories on alienation. That if you are feeling alone in this world, and especially if you find yourself behaving in ways that maybe not everybody approves of. Well, the creature is a classic example of somebody who is forced to act contrary to their basic programming, so to speak. And he doesn't even have the comfort of knowing who he originally was.
Right. And folks, if you think that the Frankenstein story because you've seen a couple of the movies, you don't. The Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Some of it wasn't Bela Lugosi.
Boris Karloff.
Yes, thank you, Boris Karloff. That one, it does come close, but there are none of them that really match Mary Shelley's original work. And it is definitely worth the read. I didn't read Tom Sawyer or Huck Finn until I was an adult and fell in love with those books. Now, granted, they are totally politically incorrect today, but the same goes with Bram Stoker's Dracula and Frankenstein. I did not read them until I was an adult, and I'm kind of glad I did, because I think I enjoyed them more as an adult than I would have as a kid. And I've always been an avid reader. I used to carry around The Stand, it's this thick, Stephen King's The Stand. And I'd be walking into classroom and kids would be going, damn, what class are you having to read that thick book for? And I'm like, none. And this is actually the 3rd time I'm reading it. And they're like, what? It's because you just read for enjoyment. But, that is another thing that I don't take enough time to do these days. But if you are wanting to write, ladies and gentlemen, you have to read too. If you've never been an avid reader, and I don't mean audible books, I mean actually reading, because you're going to see the voice, the style, the first, second, third person. and those kind of things are only going to help you become more a stronger writer. Oh, I knew y'all were going to do that. I can
Well,
hear
you
it.
know, and Carl Witzman chimes in here, says some people would rather sit around and be pedantic and argue about the business or mechanics or timing of writing and never actually write.
Exactly.
And he further goes on to say, I had a whole local group of writers like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to speak to that, Brian?
Well, yeah, I do a number of shows, or I did before the Peter pandemic, of course. But I always get people, how do I get into doing what you do? And of course, like Matthew said, well, get your butt down in the seat and start typing, start producing something, even if it's bad. Get it out of your system. Like Michael Jordan, I use him as an example. One of the greatest basketball players in all history. He had to throw a lot of misses before he finally figured out how to hit that hoop every time and how to defy gravity. You gotta put in the time, and and it's not easy, and it's sometimes not fun. It's certainly not good for the ego if you show anybody what you've produced. But then you also build up that emotional armor too. That kind of helps. But another thing is, I get people to say, "Well, I want to live this rock and roll lifestyle like you do," which means one, I've got them fooled if they think this is the rock and roll lifestyle. But also, they're like, "Well, I can't do it because," and this speaks to what Matthew was talking about with time. Well, I've got to watch this TV show tonight. For a while, I was getting, well, I've got to watch Game of Thrones tonight. And that's more important than anything. And I would go, really? You want to earn a living as a writer, huh? And they go, yeah, but I got to watch Game of Thrones tonight, so I can't write tonight. And I said, really? How much is George R.R. Martin paying you to watch his show?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, well, and I said, yeah, do you realize that could be your show up there if you get off your ass?
Yeah.
Because you see a lot, especially right now with the proliferation of shows going directly onto cable or any of the streaming services, that a lot of those started out as concepts in somebody's head, but they wrote it down and they learned to market it, whether it's Brave New World or whether it's something coming off of Disney Plus. Somebody had to write down the idea for The Mandalorian, for God's sakes.
God, what a great story too.
Yeah, exactly. And but it's the idea that somebody actually put the boots on the ground and started marching. And once you get to that finished product, and I will tell everybody, I remember how it felt when I got my first package from Amazon, and I opened it up, and it was full of books, and they all had my name on it. OMG! It was like better than any Christmas I ever had. And you know what was better though? The second time it happened, and the third, and every time I get a package from Amazon that I've ordered my brand new book, it is, like I said, it's like Christmas morning all over again, and it gets better and it gets better. And when you get to hang out with, when you build your circles and you find your people that are aligned with, I got YouTube, for God's sakes. How cool is that, right? And I'm in with a group of writers like Amy Hale, Kathy Jackson, Jason Nugent, where we all do different things, but we don't compete with each other. It's not like, well, I got to keep Brian down so I can sell more books. No, it's like, Brian, here's what I just learned. Maybe you can use it too. And I try to pay it forward again, and it's the rising tide philosophy.
Exactly.
And that's what I love about this community that we have found our way into in the last 9 months, 8 months, and the cons that we're doing, the indie events, and all of that. I mean, you and Christian and Rob, are the three people, and Varian, those are the four that friendships that we consider invaluable, that we love you guys. And, the whole thing is that that's what I loved, is that there isn't that competition of, well, I don't want my viewers going over to Geek Insider or us going, well, we don't want Brian to siphon off our viewers. Hell no, we're trying to help each other out and give each other those tips of, this is what has worked for us. This is what hasn't worked for us. And this is somebody you should talk to. That was the biggest thing with the indie events that I loved, was we have brought together several partnerships that people that may not have met for several years, if ever, without us having these kind of events. And now there's these collaborations that are going on. There and ideas flowing back and forth. And it's a very, very cool crowd to be in. I was never in the in crowd, because I'm a geek, so I wasn't allowed in the in crowd.
Right.
But we have a lot of fun together. We love your show. We love having you as a part of the Geek Insider family, so to speak. And
I appreciate it. I really do appreciate it. You guys have done a lot for me. I will admit that. Gladly.
One thing I wanted to ask real quick before we get to David's next question is, what do you suggest, being an independent writer or a freelance writer, independent publisher? A lot of the new writers think one of the first things they have to get is an agent. And so what I knew that I was going to get that. What is your view on a literary agent, and is that something that an aspiring writer should try to get?
For an aspiring writer, I frankly, that's a great question. I honestly think they should try self-publishing, because if nothing else, they will then understand what a mainstream publisher goes through, and will hopefully develop a sense of patience. Because let's see, last year I wrote a book for another publisher in early 2019. They finally scheduled it for late this year, and because it's a smaller publisher, chances are we won't see it till maybe sometime mid 2021 at the no, not mid 2021. Probably mid 2021 at the earliest. It'll take about 2 years for that thing to get out. Whereas I can have a book out, and a good book out, within 6 months. Plus, I have it fully edited. I can hire a good graphic designer. My wife, Cookie, God bless her, can format the interiors now, because she wanted to become more in a part of my company. And it is something that we can do together. The big hashtag on my show is #bring Cookie home, because we see Rising Tide as the vehicle for that. But yeah, I would say start out with publishing it yourself, because you'll also learn how to handle criticism, because people will always have an opinion of you. People will always, Varian Grant uses, and I was so elated when Varian Grant uses this analogy, because I've been using it for 20 years, about crabs, about you go crab fishing, and the crabs will.
I thought you were talking about a different kind of crabs there.
Oh, no. That's the sort of stuff I do on my show, but I won't infect yours with. Anyway, I'm trying to take the higher road on this one. But now that you mention it, though. No,
there's a lotion for that.
Yeah, we've got some here. Anyway, but no, it's the idea that people will try to drag you down because they don't want to see you change, because it changes them in a way. Either you move on from them, or I am changed because of what I've done. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a good change, thank God. But I'm a little more analytical now. I have a whole crazy set of skills that I didn't have 10 years ago. But because I wanted to learn more about what I do and didn't feel like farming it out, I've learned these things. So again, self-publishing will teach you a lot of this. Now, if you have an inkling to go to, say, get your book onto one of the streaming services, or, as a movie, or you want a TV show made of it, yes, you must have an agent. If you want to, and the thing is, when we talk about mainstream publishers, like when I was a kid, there were about 2 dozen of them. But due to the economy, various recessions, due to changing reader habits, due to just companies buying each other up, there's now only five major publishers. And those are the people who yeah, seriously, there's just five of them. And I wouldn't be surprised if, say, in 10 years, it's down to 3 or 4.
Because I remember going to the library to get that thick ass book of where you could submit your writings to with magazines,
Writer's Digest, Writer's
yes.
Yearbook. Yes, they still make it.
The library wouldn't let you check it out. You could just review it there at the library, and you'd go through with your pen and paper, and you'd write down the addresses so you could submit those things.
Yeah.
And and I knew print media magazines have really, there's so many of them that have gone out the window and just kind of gone out of print. But I didn't realize we were down to really 5 major publishers. Has self-publishing really taken on that much? I mean, as far as, of course, you got Amazon, and then you got just folks that are pushing it on their own websites.
Right.
It has self-publishing basically become the 6th Beatle?
I think in a way you're right, because it's allowed people who could not get into the big leagues now can publish their own work and find their own audience. And there are examples of people who have gone from self-publishing and moved into bigger leagues, or people
and vice
who
versa.
Sorry?
And vice versa.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, a buddy of mine. The guy who writes, who's been writing Batman, Tom King. He was in the same program I was, called Kindle Worlds. He used to write books based on the Valiant Comics characters, just like I did. Also, another buddy of mine, Jim Beard. He had a good writing career in comics and other books, but he went into the Kindle Worlds program, which was basically paid fan fiction. It's no longer there, unfortunately. But he wrote a lot of stuff in there too, and that's where I got my start. Hugh Howey, who is one of the leading voices in self-publishing, got his start in doing his own work through what was then CreateSpace, what is now Kindle Direct Publishing. And this is also Chicken Soup for the Soul was originally self-published. 50 Shades of Grey was originally self-published. So we used to have the struggle of, like comic books have up until recent years been thought of as literature for either children or the intellectually challenged. And now it's mainstream. And self-published work is getting into that now too. Whereas 10 years ago, the gatekeepers were always saying, well, everything that's self-published, it's got to be self-published, because otherwise someone would want to pay to publish it. Whereas I look at it that I do send my stuff out to other publishers because I want to learn from other editors. And I like working with certain other people. And sometimes somebody will say, hey, listen, like what I did with Doc Savage. Hey, I've got this thing here. I'd love you to do a story for us. And I'm like, okay, fine. Because, one, I get to work with new people. I get to make new contacts. I get to tap into their existing fan base. And by the same token, they can also get into mine. Because they'll say, hey, Brian's got a book. We're going to check out that guy who's editing him, sort of thing. So it has a ripple effect. But unless you, like I said, unless you have ambition of getting into TV or film or streaming services or the top 5, you must get a publisher, because the gates are so freaking close and there is so much competition to hit that level. Whereas now, you can just publish your own and find your people, find your tribe, find your readership, and build from there, and create your own little business. It's a great little side gig, or for some of us, it's the A plan. So,
I want to speak to the person out there who wants to write, who says that there's a book in me, but I just don't know where to start. One of the things that I highly recommend is starting a blog. You start a blog and you make a goal to write something in it every single day. That starts to give you discipline.
Yeah.
From there, You know, if you feel like you've got a decent blog, then you start building your social media and you start getting a following. And all of this is organic. And then you're building a real support network under you who will advocate for you because they're fans. You know, they're not just people out there who are looking to build their numbers and stuff like that, but they're actually looking at your body of work and going, you know what? I see this going somewhere. And then eventually, you know, if your blog is based on a theme or whatever kind of content and stuff like that, you know, you say, hey, you know what? I think I'm going to take these little stories and I'm going to put them together in this little book. And there you go. There's your first book.
And
And
folks,
it doesn't feel like it was so hard.
and you don't have to start your own blog. Geek Insider, folks, we do accept new writers. If you have an anthology or not an anthology, but a fan fiction that you want to do. I started a fan fiction a couple of years ago and I never finished it on The Punisher, but we had a very, very popular and successful fan fiction on Star Wars that ran for 2 years on Geek Insider. And so if you're wanting to build your portfolio, or you're wanting to give yourself that structure of, okay, I've got to have this one piece done a week, contact me at matthew@geekinsider.com and we'll get you a profile set up. You know, it's strictly to build your portfolio and to give you that experience and to, you know, you can push it out on your social media and do what I did and what Meredith has done, using it as a springboard to go and show people, hey, I have got these 20 different articles over here on Geek Insider of these various topics, or I've got this fan fiction that I'd actually like to put into a book or a comic book, because that you don't have to go out and buy a website.com or start your own blog. That is something that Geek Insider can definitely help you with. And so anybody out there, if you are interested in writing, even if you don't have any experience, but you like geek related things, stuff that you think that our audience is going to enjoy, I'll give you a shot. Any time of day, I will give you a shot, because I love writers. I love the independents. And I know how it feels to be trying to get your career going as a writer. And Geek Insider, we reach a wide variety of audience all around the world. We've got folks in the UK that visit in the middle of the night. We've got folks in the US that are here throughout the day that just wait for our social media posts. So, but Meredith is exactly right. You know, starting a blog or joining in on a blog that is pertinent, especially with Geek Insider. We've been around almost a decade. We have a built-in audience. And speaking of built-in audience, I see Christian is not wearing any pants. News at 11, film at 11.
All right. You know what? The other thing that I wanted to say real quick, and I'll hand the mic back over to Brian, is you know, about 25 years ago, I was submitting my stories to agents and publishers, like, really aggressively. I was like so into it, very much into, I love writing romance as well as horror and thrillers and things like that. I was very much in the romance author scene. And it wasn't until I got my first rejection letter where I was like, I made it as a writer. You know, seriously, it was like, I took something that could have been totally like a crushing blow. Yeah. And just said, oh, screw this. This is too hard. And, you know, and it's like, I'm only getting no's and stuff like that. But I took that first rejection letter and I've since lost it in the many moves in 25 years. But I had it framed. I did. I had it framed. And I was so proud of it because, and everybody in my family was like, that's failure. I says, no, you don't understand. The fact that I sent something in and got a response back, whether it was a negative, just said, hey, you know what? You are a writer. You're just not for us. And I was like, right. Yes, I made it. And it felt great when I spun it around like that. And I said, you know what? But see, back then, self-publishing was a terrible word.
Yeah.
I mean, if you went there, it was just because you weren't a good writer at all.
Right.
And I think the tides have changed as far as that.
Oh, definitely.
Now, don't get me wrong. There's garbage out there. There's a lot of garbage.
Yeah.
But I
Go to
think,
Barnes and Noble, you'll see racks of it.
yeah, I mean, and it's painful sometimes to kind of go through there and try and find quality work, but it's not impossible. And another analogy that I was going to say is like when I was the music director of the children's choir at our church. I would select music that I knew was going to be challenging for the kids to learn. I knew it. And my music director came over to me and says, it's too hard. I'm like, shh, don't let
Say
them
that.
say
Right.
that because they don't know it's hard. They're just learning it. And that's the thing. It's like, if you're a hobbyist, it's one thing. If you're serious about the writing, you're gonna learn the ins and outs. You're gonna learn all of these things, these intricate things to make it happen, to make your dream happen. So you have to either, to be kind of crude, is like shut or get off the pot. Is it a hobby? If it's a hobby, then fine. You write your little thing and then you go and watch your TV
Game of
show.
Thrones.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
But if
yeah.
you're serious about it, you're going to dedicate time. You're going to say, every day, I am going to dedicate some brain power and some energy into this because that's going to get me to the next. It's a stepping stone to the next thing, to the next thing. And then before you know it, like Brian, you're opening up a box of books with your name on it.
And that's the thing too. Yes, I'm admittedly obsessive, but if you are a true blue writer and it's not just a passing fancy, once you start putting that, okay, I'm going to take 30 minutes tonight after dinner and I'm going to write. That's going to start percolating in your head. The next chapter is going to be right there on the edge, and you're going to start having these outlines and layouts. I'll lay there in bed sometimes for an hour after going to bed because my damn brain won't shut down. And really and truly, folks, one of the best tips I can give you, keep a notepad by your bed, not your phone. That can be blinding in the middle of the night. But, Brian just showed his, Meredith showing hers. I keep mine. Because it's not necessarily dreams that you want to write down. It's those late night ideas when you're relaxing. And especially if you are working every day on a story idea, because trust me, you'll have those great ideas in the middle of the night and you're going, oh, fuck yes, I want this in the next chapter. It's so good. I will not forget it. And the next morning and all the next day, you are going, damn it, I can't remember what this great idea was. Take 2 seconds, write it down, and even if it's just shorthand that you only can decipher, because those kind of ideas are sometimes fleeting and you never get them back. It will bug the shit out of you. But once you start doing that, you're getting into the habit of, yes, I'm going to write every day on this story. It becomes habit, and your brain kind of gets into that mode. It'll let you know it's 7:30. You're supposed to be writing, and you'll start trickling in the ideas and, wanting that desire to get in there. And if it's a passing fancy, more power to you.
Christian Basil opening a box of books with your name on it that Brian has pre-looked for your pleasure. And from what Matthew said, because I'm a delinquent, the only thing I really heard was, I'll show you mine if you show me yours.
I've been telling you that for 2 years.
Yeah. Well, and also, I want to amplify great points, both of you, but I want to amplify on something Meredith said, kind of twisting things around. Were you picked on in school? Were you the outsider? Were you the person who didn't march to the beat of everyone else's drums? You want to know how to get back at them? Succeed.
Yep.
Take this thing and run with it. It is possible to succeed. I mean, the first time I published something with the aforementioned Kindle Worlds program, I thought I was going to sell like a crap ton of books. I wound up selling 20 copies. And I'm like, You know, it's like, oh my God, I'm, jobless if not for this. And do you know how many people came up and go, 20 copies? Holy shit, that's amazing. How'd you do it? And, it's one of these things that you invest the time, you invest the study, it rewards you. And then you keep yourself open and you make great friends like these guys here, and you find the people that inspire you, like this this column of names here is like a who's who of my support team. And allegedly they've gotten some things from me too, who knows. But the thing is, on the way up, like in school, I was the back in the 70s, I was the kid still reading comic books when everybody was trying to figure out how to clear up their acne. I was the guy that was doing the artistic things in a school system where my English teacher taught Shakespeare under protest, and he let us know. And he, I got a copy of Margaret Mitchell's Gone with the Wind, the novel, because I wanted to read the book. He said, "Who ordered this crap?" What kind of learning environment is that? But you know what? I took those feelings, and now when I go out and I put the effort into creating a work, or I help somebody else do theirs, it's like Frank Sinatra said. You know what the best revenge is? Living well. And for everyone who told me when I was starting Rising Tide, originally it was Freelance Words, now it's Rising Tide. But when I started my publishing business, I made it public. This is what I'm doing. I had so many people telling me it's impossible because every book sucks that's self-published. Your cover will be horrible. You won't be able to do this. You won't be able to do that. But, I kept writing. I kept doing my freelancing on the side. Like Meredith said, I built my creative resume. And by the way, do you know how impressive it is to an employer when you say, I'm an award-winning playwright? I parlayed that into about 20 years of work. And, you think it's expensive. Aside from the cost of printing this book, it's virtually free. Okay, now there are some expenses. In fact, I got to talk up my cover guy there, Trevor Hawkins, no relation to Eric. I've known him for years. We met through the Superman celebration in Metropolis, Illinois. He's got a degree in fine art, and I said, I'd like you to do my cover. And I said, name your price, and he said, no, I don't want to. I'm not going to take any money for it because my father has been ragging me for 20 years that I'm not a famous fine artist yet. I want to shove this in his face and say, look, somebody believed in me enough that they published my work. So you bring people with you. That's the other key, is bring people with you. And the thing is, this book has not only gone on to sell in 6 different countries, and we're bootlegged in Russia. It's the bragging rights.
But is it really bragging rights until you are bootlegged in China?
I'm also bootlegged in China. I'm also on the official China. I'm also on the Chinese version of Amazon there. But the thing is, now my friend also gets a royalty because I take a percentage of the cover price and I pay him for his work. And the thing is also, you do nice things for other people. 2.5 years ago, I put out my own comic book called The Ghostly Tales of Spencer Spook. The man who owns the property licensed it to me because we're friends. And then I went out and I asked, first of all, my artist, Eric Hawkins, no relation to Trevor. Or Steven. Nope, not him either. Anyway, Eric is a lot more healthy. Anyway, Eric, because Steven's dead. Steven's dead. You don't want to be like Stephen Hawkins because he's dead. Anyways, Eric wanted to work together because we're friends. And so we put together this really nice comic. And the thing was, I approached 3 professional mainstream comic book artists. And, I knew them to one degree or another. And I was sure that at least one of them would turn me down. And I thought, and I had my excuse ready. It's like, okay, The minute they say their price, I'm going to like, well, I'll get back to you because that's a little out of my price range, which was close to this. And even though I did do crowdfunding, and I got even more contacts that way. But anyway, getting back to the story, I approached one who has been published by a lot of the major publishers and is a successful self-publisher. Years ago, we were at a convention together, and I was guiding people to his table so they could pick up original sketches from him. He gave me a cut rate on my cover.
Because he remembered you.
Yes, he remembered me. Well, we stayed in touch. And then the other person I contacted was a friend I know through another geek thing, but he had drawn comics for IDW and Bongo Comics, The Simpsons. Wow. And I asked him what it would take, and I'm ready for his price. And he says, you come up with the gag, and I'll draw it. Wow. And pay me off in copies. I said, fine. So then I went to the third person, and this is, and I'll say this, this is a guy who has worked on virtually every character from DC and Marvel. And I went to him, and I thought he'd be the one to tell me no. And he said his price was, I said, I remember I approached him as, what would it take, how much would it cost me to get a cover from you so that I could exploit your good name? That's exactly how I phrased it. He came back with, don't bother me for 2 months. I've got an important assignment for Marvel Comics. I'm writing and drawing these books, and I've got a tight deadline. And if you don't contact me, I will draw your comic cover as soon as it's done. And I said, yeah, but how much is it going to cost? He said, then he grilled me to make sure I knew what I was getting into. Mm-hmm. He asked me what my business model was, and I told him what it was because I was going to do the crowdfunding thing. And he said, okay, fine. Don't bother me for 2 months. The only and I wrote it down in my little appointment book. Okay, so-and-so date. And I gave him a couple extra days. Call my friend. And the thing was, the only time I contacted him was to let him know that the Kickstarter had succeeded. And I got a cover from him. So you see, you do good things and good things come to you. That is why, if I can get on my soapbox again, rising tide. We call it that because John F. Kennedy used to talk about how a rising tide raises all ships. Back when DC was doing the New 52, they suddenly had about a dozen titles that for the first time in decades had sold 1 million copies each. But the thing is, it wasn't DC that got the benefit. Marvel also saw an uptick in their sales because of that, because people were saying, oh, there's the new Spider-Man, I'll pick it up. Oh, the Fantastic Four, I'll grab that too. Oh, look, there's something from Dark Horse. I've never read Hellboy before. Let's grab that. So it had a ripple effect, and it's like the Beatles said: the more the more love you give, the more you get back.
And seeing you speak on exactly what I was one of those that gave Marvel some time or some money off of the New 52 because I hadn't been into a comic book store in a while. I heard about the New 52. I went in and they were doing the Spider-Man where Doc Ock was Spider-Man and Peter was stuck as a ghost.
Oh,
and I ended up picking that up and I didn't end up finishing it, but I think I got through 7 issues or something like that. But that was the whole thing because I am a huge Batman fan, a DC fan. I do love my Marvel characters, but DC has always been at my heart. I mean, there's Poison Ivy and Joker and Harley. And then I got all my DC. There's Batman, Superman.
Oh, that is sweet. That's sweet, Matthew.
I love my Nightwing and Robin right there, where it's
and I see the Batman Superman emblem. Beautiful.
Yeah, that was one of my first ones, and actually over this eagle, this was my first tattoo, but I'm getting that covered with the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Logo, so that it all ties in together. And then I got Iron Fist, the Immortal Iron Fist right here, and so but yeah, I've always been a DC guy, and I do like my Marvel characters, but I always seem, besides Batman, I always seem to read more Marvel. And I kick myself in the ass, Brian, because back in the 90s, Marvel was in freaking bankruptcy. Their stock was 2 cents a share.
I was a stock owner.
Oh.
I wanted to be. I was like, I should really get in on this stock. I really think comics are going to make a comeback at some point.
Yeah.
And I kept putting it off, and never bought any. And of course, now I would be able to retire if I'd have spent, a couple $1,000s on Marvel stock. But that was back when the comic shops were booming. And then the comic book industry did it to themselves when they started having, 19 million variants and then crossovers to make me go and buy all these different titles that I'd never read, but I had to go and buy it in order to continue the storyline. That they really oversaturated the market. Everybody's buying all the variants. Oh, I'm going to be able to retire in 20 years off of these. And of course, you're not. You can barely get $1 for them if you take them into the comic book store.
Right.
But the indies are always the ones where my heart was. I always bring up Poison Elves and Wandering Star. I met Brian Pulido very early on in the Lady Death. And,
I love Lady Death. That's a great series. And Empire Lanes. I remember Empire Lanes.
Yes.
And Nexus and Badger.
Well, I'm going to interrupt you guys because we're getting at the 2-hour mark, and we're going to close up because for anybody who is actually still hanging out, Demon Phil's got a birthday bash that's happening at
That's right.
But
and we want to tune in.
Brian cannot get out of here without answering one question.
Oh.
We have every guest answer this question, Brian, and you get to go a little bit further back in time than a lot of the others. But if you could travel back in time and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
That's really easy. Stay the course. Stay the course. You're going to win.
Very cool. Very cool. I love it. I thought it was going to be something about buy a fez early, but
there are some things you have to learn on your own, and I'm not sure that the earlier Brian would be ready for that much sex appeal at one point. It's a dangerous combination.
Yep, too much sex appeal can get you in a lot of trouble in your early ages. I'm speaking from experience here, but
I know what you mean.
All right,
folks, Brian, tell everybody where they can find you.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you, guys. First of all, thank you, Meredith. Thank you, Matthew, for having me. I appreciate you guys so very much, and I love your show, and I hope everybody tunes in regularly to this. Where you can find me is at risingtide.pub, where you can sign up for my free monthly newsletter. The next issue will be going out September 1st. Also, I have a page on Facebook, Rising Tide Publications, where we post new things every calendar day, 2 or 3 times a day. We have fresh content on there. Also, I have a YouTube channel that we're building. If you want to watch recent episodes of Vamp while I grab my graphics. If you want to watch recent episodes of Nevermind the Furthermore, the interactive talk show that happens Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, or if you want to watch Clever Title Pending, which happens every Tuesday night at 8 p.m., 7 p.m. Central Time, we have recent episodes there. We're going to be starting new broadcasting on there soon, dealing with creativity and teaching you how you can get in on the ground floor even now. And please don't forget, I'll be part of the indie event this coming Saturday at noon. I will be joined by Russell Allen, Mr. Zeno Nanite Titan himself, and we're going to talk about different streams of income arising from one's intellectual property. And then tomorrow morning, I will be doing Nevermind the Furthermore at 10 a.m., and you're invited to bring your questions, your comments, and your promotions. And back to you guys. And thank you again for having me. It is, as usual when I'm with you two, it is a blast.
It is. We're going to start up here, and we're going to say goodbye. Look at that. Who's that sexy? Who's that sexy man?
I still think, though, that for some reason he looks like a leprechaun to me. With that pipe, Brian, you look like a leprechaun. But It's not the fez; it's those sideburns and the pipe. I think it just gives you that leprechaun look for me.
The pipe is how you know I'm a serious author.
Oh yes,
That's the only way you'll know I'm a serious author.
And on that note, guys, before it devolves even further, we're out of here.